Here are a couple of quotes I wanted to share with you that come from the book. The task of the Christian is not to whine about the moment in which he or she lives, but to understand its problems and respond appropriately to them. Isn't that good? Because it's easy to just look out there at the world and say, what a mess. Right? In fact, some people have suggested Christians should retreat, kind of like they did in the Middle Ages, and then go back to abbeys and be monks and let the world go to downhill fast, but stay there and represent the sanity and restoration of things eventually. I don't think that makes sense. I mean, we should be interacting with our world, and that's what Truman is saying there. Not just to understand it, but to respond. I mean, I think it's not as hard to understand it. You say, okay, I get it, but now how do you respond? What do you say to these people? How do you interact with them? He also said this: the moral structure today prioritizes victimhood. You heard that a lot? Yeah. Regards traditional sexual codes as oppressive. There's a big word, right? Everything's oppressive. In fact, today, if you follow anything about critical theory, they break everybody into either oppressors or the oppressed. And guess what? Everybody in here, I'm looking around, you're all oppressors. Right? Either based on skin color or the fact that you're Christians or half of you are male, right? You're fitting into the category of oppressor. So that's what's going on. Everything is oppressive to certain people here, and life denying, and places a premium on the individual's right to define his or her own existence. All these things, he says, really captures that spirit that you see out there and you hear about and you read and you interact with that all the time. It's gotten big. So he had a foreword in the book. Again, the book is not a requirement. You don't need to read the book. I'll give you enough information ahead of time that if you're curious, you'll get the gist of what we're going to be doing in the class here. But he did a foreword to the book, which is pretty impressive. He's busy. And he's a really well-known individual. And so he was impressed with this book. And so he had his own foreword in there. He said basically what's going on, this deconstruction is not an American invention. Right? It came from Europe. Why does all the bad ideas come from Europe? I guess good ideas too, all right, but a lot of these bad ideas, they're hatched over there, whether it's Marxism, and then it comes over here. And it was part of a European movement. And when it came over here, everybody loves freedom in this country, nothing wrong with that, but people latched onto this thing. It was like, great, this is liberation. And we're going to throw off these bondages, these chains that we've had. And so let's get rid of external authority. That would be the church, that would be the school, that would be the family, that would be a lot of things that you got to get rid of those things. And then this quote, and this one really is pretty startling: we will never be free until we're free of God. That's the claim. So I wanted to stop here for just a minute. I made a list, and I'd like to share it with you, but I want to hear from you. They're right. If you give up God, if you get rid of God, you are going to end up free of certain things. The catch is the things you're going to be free of are going to make your life miserable. Mm-hmm. So let me give you two of them, and then I want to hear maybe some ideas you had. So I wrote down, you'll be free from meaning. Right? There's no meaning. You're making up your own meaning. There's no meaning out there. So meaning goes away. Belonging, that goes away. You're going to get these isolated individuals because you're making up your own existence. You don't need to hear from anybody else. And so we're getting kind of a fragmented society. Are you noticing that? Some of the clubs and the organizations that people used to join, they're not joining as much anymore. They just go on the internet and they can find somebody out there that shares their system of belief, but they're not connecting really anymore. So we're atomizing our society. We're ending up individualized. But Christianity is the world's largest multicultural organization. Right? Somebody throws around the idea of multiculturalism and say, yeah, we're part of it. Christianity is all over the world. You can go anywhere. You can find a brother and sister in Christ. Right? Try that with anything else. In fact, I've heard some atheists are complaining about, we need something that brings us together. And so they've had atheist churches, which kind of makes my head hurt thinking about. But they want that kind of feeling. They know Christians have got a great thing going. And they don't, because they're going to be free of God. Anybody have an idea of other things you might say we would get if we abandoned God? That would be our freedom, but the freedom is going to lead to some terrible things. I think we lose meaning, we lose belonging. Anything else, Eric?
You don't have evil.
That's right. Evil goes away. Because there's got to be a standard out there. Otherwise, it's just what you
It's
feel.
just your opinion.
It's just your opinion. There's no good and there's no bad. It's just, I don't like it or I like it. So the war in Ukraine, the war going on right now, trafficking, sex trafficking, that's just, you must not like it if you're complaining about it, but you have no standard. You get to set, remember, it's the individual who gets to set things. So it's just personal taste. It's like vanilla versus chocolate ice cream. Anything else you think that we lose?
Moral code.
Moral code. Yeah. Yeah. Where is that? I mean, that disappears. What are we going to say?
Shame and guilt, like we
Yeah.
are free from judgment, so now we don't feel any shame or any guilt anymore.
Yeah. I think it was Greg Kokel. He said, Kokel, if you don't know, is a really neat apologist. He said when he goes to a college campus and talks to people there, he says, there's something I know about you that you don't think I know. You feel guilty. And he said, you know why? Because you're guilty. But most people don't want to hear that. They say it was my parents' fault. It was the school system. I don't have enough money. Right? And all these things have ruined me. It was outside. But he's saying, no, it's in here. Yeah, so we lose that, I think. Anything else that we would lose, do you think? Don?
Motivation to persevere during difficult times.
Yeah. Don't you think we have a lot of snowflakes these days? I mean, I teach out at college, and by the time my semester is over, I've lost around half the students. And it's not because, and there are cases where illness or accidents and things like that, but a lot of them just, they're just kind of wallowing through life, you know, and if something hits them head on, they're done. Right? Where's that kind of perseverance? You don't see it very much.
We also have no hope and no forgiveness.
Yeah.
There's no
What's the hope?
for peace.
70, 80 years and you go in the ground.
Ah,
Pile up the toys.
you're done.
Right, that's it.
No meaning.
No meaning. What were you going to say?
Well, we lose an understanding of where we come from.
Yeah. That's good.
God basically is the beginning of life and the creator of life.
Yeah.
We lose that concept of we may be free, we may be our own external authority, but where did it all come from?
Yeah. So there's no story. We have no story. We're not part of the story. Yeah. Here are a couple of other things. I wrote down inspiration. The greatest art and the greatest music and the greatest cultural things that people have created have come out of Christianity, haven't they?
Yeah.
Michelangelo and Bach and Beethoven and all these people. How about respect for others? Right? We're all children of God. Everybody's got value, but you don't hear that much anymore. Now it's pretty much, if you got your nameplate at a business, you're okay, but if you're struggling, too bad for you, pretty much. Right? But we say no. That's why we want to take care of the preborn. Right? We want to not have abortion and things like that. That everybody's got value. How about security? Can other things be taken away from us? Can help? Yeah, money. Yeah, jobs, significant others. I mean, you just go down the list. Where's our security if God is gone? Oh, I'm free now. Well, what are you free from? You're free from connections.
Okay.
And you're free from meaning and that security. You're a child of God. There's a plan for you, right? So I just thought, what a concept. Yeah, you're free, but what's going to come about? He says that this whole concept up here is not new. Would you agree? Is this the first time in the human race where they've decided, I'll do it myself? Thank you. That's our story, right? Take it back to Genesis. Don't eat from that tree. I think I'll eat from that tree.
I got a question about this because I have friends who are literally dyed-in-the-wool atheists, and they are good people.
Oh, yeah.
They are happy people.
Yeah.
They do fine. It's not always something that basically is going to destroy life
Yeah.
if you're free of God. So that's something that we have to argue against.
Right, because what we don't ever want to say is atheists cannot be good. They just have no standard by which to say this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. But up to them individually, yeah, they can be really terrific people.
And they have good standards.
Yeah, many of them are better than Christians as far as what they're doing in the world.
But again, what are they basing their standards upon?
Yeah,
They're stealing from Christianity and from God to make a standard
that's a good
to
point.
allow them to have an existence.
Yeah,
And then never free from the guilt and shame of their sin.
right.
Never. It's always something new.
They
Yeah.
don't recognize sin.
Yeah.
I always want
That's
to.
like the thorn in the paw.
What's that?
That's the silent thorn in their paw, and that's why they're so aggro towards the church.
Yeah.
Because they're hostile towards the church because of Christ. And Christ even said, if they're coming after me, they're going to come after you.
Yeah. I think about the atheists again. If, like Alan was talking about, they've been doing really well and happy. But I always want to say, talk to me in 5 years, or talk to me in 2 years, or when the health causes a problem, or you lose a job, or something comes up and it's a struggle. Where do you turn, right?
Yeah. Where's the
It's
peace?
just you.
Yeah.
They talk about Christianity being a crutch. Have you ever heard that one?
Yes.
Well, everybody's got a crutch, right? I mean, it might be money for some people. It might be relationships. It might be jobs, whatever. But those crutches can go. Christianity says it's not going to go, right? Jesus is our crutch because we're all broken people. So we need a crutch. Okay, so here's the last thing he said, Truman's forward. He said we need to have a good sense of the specific logic and language of the time. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks. The logic, right? What's the logic behind these people walking away? And what's our response? What would be our logic in return? And to know the language, right? There's a new language out there, this whole deconstruction language. So we need to talk about that as well. So before the book starts into the chapters, they have a little first section. I don't know what they call it, but anyway, it's not the foreword, it's not chapter 1, it's start there. And they call it Exvangelical, and that's not a typo, right? That's what these people will call themselves, ex meaning out of and away from evangelical. And so they fill out part of the book, both the authors, they have 2 authors in this book, they both tell some stories about people they know that have walked away from the faith. And my guess is that you've heard stories like that, yeah? The people have walked away. They may not have called themselves deconstructionists, they may not have used that term, but I bet you know people have been in the church or been involved and they've walked away. My son, one of my sons, knows somebody that's mentioned in the book. And so we've talked to him about it, and yeah, he's talked to the guy. But anyway, so there are a lot of people that have done, some of them famous. You got singers who used to be singing Christian things. You have people that wrote Christian books, and they've walked away.
Right.
So you probably have some stories too, Joseph.
Yeah, the girl that led me to the Lord, she walked away.
Oh,
Isn't
really?
that weird? I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that.
Yeah. Wow.
What was that?
She said somebody that led her to the Lord has walked away. Yeah. So as they wrap up this intro part, they said, here's what we're trying to do. To analyze and critique, right? To analyze is to pull something apart. Critique is kind of make judgments about it. Deconstruction, what are its methods, what are the trends, the messages, and the impact on the church. Of course, the impact is really important too. I see a couple of you keeping notes, that's fine, but I'll send you notes. I always try to do that afterwards, so whatever. If you like keeping notes, that's fine. So here's the structure of the book. Steve and I will be tag teaming, every week, it'll be either one of us there. So the first 4 chapters, I'm just doing 2 tonight. Steve will do the next 2 in a week. But part 1 of the book identifies what is deconstruction, defining it, and noting how it's grown. And then part 2, which will be the next few chapters, why and how and what things are people deconstructing? What are they walking away from? And then who are the people that are deconstructing? I think that's really interesting. Psychologically, what are causing these people to walk away? And then part 3, this is pretty useful. You don't want to just end with a problem. What are we going to do about it? So how can we love and help people who might be deconstructing? So tonight will be chapters 1 and 2. So just a reminder, you don't need to buy the book. If you want to, that's fine. You get it on Amazon. What was it, about $12?
About that.
Yeah, something like that. But it's up to you. If you just like to have it on the shelf, fine. But we'll be talking enough about it, and you'll get a really good idea of what's in there.
What's the name of the book?
It's called I didn't bring it with me. The Deconstruction of Christianity. Alan's got one. Okay, they've got one back there too.
I got it.
It's probably too new to be able to find a used copy. That's my guess. No, that's a lot cheaper.
eBay's good for that.
eBay? Yeah, okay. So chapter 1, they call their first chapter the explosion. And I wanted to stop here for just a minute to have us think about worldviews. So have you heard that term before, worldviews? So think of it like a pair of glasses that you put on. Depends on the color of the lens. You're going to see things differently. So worldview is how everybody has basic ideas of where do we come from, what's wrong with us, how do we fix things, you know, what are humans like? And those are just basic things. People may not walk around telling you, oh, I've got worldview, here's my worldview. They may not tell you that, but everybody's got a belief system down deep. And their point in the book, which I think is so good, is that we're up against a worldview. It's not a politician who's at fault. It's not your neighbor who's a loudmouth. It's not the person, your aunt who comes to Christmas and says these things, right? These are not the problems. These people are part of something way bigger. It's a worldview issue. And there's a clash, right? We've got the Christian worldview and the secular worldview. And you can see it's fighting in this country right now. You'll hear it from people back and forth and all. But so I don't want us to think that there's somebody out there who's the problem. Does that make sense? So we don't attack other people. That it's a worldview issue that people are involved with. So there were a lot of verses in this first chapter that I thought were wonderful. I'm not going to do them all, and I'm just doing a piece of some of them to give us the idea of what are we going to do as Christians. So one thing is, 2 Corinthians says, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ. So do you see there's some offensive weaponry that's going on, some offensive action? I don't mean to be offensive, but to take the offense. So when you hear a bad idea, you respond. But of course there are good ways and there are bad ways to respond. Then you've got the flip side. So here's the taking the fight to somebody else. But then in Colossians, Paul also says, we resist and we oppose ideas that could take us captive. Right? So there's more defensive weaponry involved, saying, no, I'm not going to buy into that. No, that's not going to harm me. I always think, I guess, because I found it really fascinating to see what happened to society. You remember when the Da Vinci Code came out?
Yes.
It sold a gazillion copies. It's now in the top 10 of all books all time. Right? It's up there with Dickens. So this was a huge book. And Christians, I don't know, I mean, I think that a lot of them walked away. They said, oh, I didn't know that about Jesus. I didn't know that about Mary Magdalene. I didn't know that about John the Baptist. I didn't know that about the New Testament. And you know why they didn't know it? Because it wasn't true. But nobody ever told them that. But if you're a Christian and you have some defenses up there and you've got some good books to analyze, you'd say, that's all a bunch of nonsense. And it was. Dan Brown made a fortune writing nonsense. But it really influenced a lot of people. Part of the problem, if you recognize that book, flip to the front before you get to the title page and all that stuff, and it says all of the artwork and all of the societies mentioned and all of the literature mentioned are accurate. So his claim was that it was a fiction book only in the sense of making up the characters. No, he made up stuff about the Bible. But so he's misleading from the very get-go. Anyway, so that really affected a lot of people. So I think Paul is telling us, don't let that happen to you. So who's our enemy? One more time. It's not that person down the street. It's not that talking head on television. It's spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Isn't that pretty much what Ryan was talking about last Sunday? He's starting in on a series about the crucifixion and the resurrection, and he says it's a big spiritual warfare that we're so used to this physical world, we don't think of something bigger than that. But there's spiritual stuff going on out there. What's our weapon? Paul lays out the weapons, right? We're supposed to put on the armor of God, and the first thing he says is, get that belt of truth. So he seems to think there's real truth, not just, he didn't say put on your truth. I didn't see that, it's put on truth. So how do we engage? What are they saying in the Bible? How do we engage? Well, in Philippians, Paul says this, we're supposed to have knowledge and discernment. How would you define discernment? What do you think of? What does it mean to discern?
Choosing right from wrong.
Yeah, deciding right from wrong, being selective, putting something up for a standard to look at and say, does that really match up? Hal?
Actually thinking about it.
What a novel idea. To approve what's excellent. In other words, there are things that are excellent, there are things that are lousy. And we're supposed to discern between the two. People swallow everything today. You know, if it's on the internet, it must be true. Oh, really? Huh. How about the Bereans? Do you remember that story of the Bereans? Paul goes to them, and what do? Instead of saying, well, that was a nice message, that really touched me, I feel so uplifted, I'll just believe it. They searched the scriptures, it says that. So they took his message, and they mashed it up, and he said, yeah, it matches or it doesn't match. And in this case, they bought it. He said, yeah, that's the way we've been taught and we know. And then Jude says, we're dealing, again, it's a spiritual battle. It's not a bad person out there. Somebody bought into this system. And he says we're supposed to show compassion for people who ask questions, and certainly with Christians. We don't want to drive people away. I think the worst thing we can say is, you must not have enough faith. Right? You're asking a question, you must not have enough faith. I've heard young people go to a youth pastor and been told that, just have more faith, pray about it. In other words, it's your problem to ask the question. No, it's not. Everybody's got questions. We were talking a few minutes before class that we're dealing with a God that's way beyond our understanding, and no wonder we have questions. Right? I mean, we can't picture how God works. You look at the gods of these other religions, they're pretty easy to figure out. The Greek gods, they're just overgrown kids, right? Full of testosterone and all sorts of stuff, and doing stupid things to each other. It's like you can figure them out pretty easily. So they made an analogy, which I think is pretty good. They said this deconstruction is not a careful process, that what people do is basically throw bombs, and the explosion goes off, and it goes off all over the place, and no telling where it lands. So it's not a case of deconstruction always leads people to this place. It may lead them completely away from any religion, may head them toward atheism, may head them toward Buddhism. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, so it tends to throw people all over the place. So if you're dealing with somebody who's talking about deconstruction, ask them where they ended up. Let's see where they end up. So is there good deconstruction? I think Ryan talked about this last week, didn't he? That's part of the Christian vision, part of what we're supposed to do, doing some of these kinds of things. Morris?
Gary, just curious question. We're talking about deconstruction of Christianity. Have you ever heard of anybody deconstructing from Buddhism or Muslim? Yeah, I'm just.
No, I haven't, but people have walked away from it, obviously, but I don't know. I'm sure they haven't used that term. Yeah. Here's the catch. Ryan, I think, made the point, which is a really good point, that there's nothing wrong with deconstructing. Does that make sense? That there are these things that we do want to interact and struggle with, in some cases, with our faith. But the culture, the people who have walked away, the culture outside of the Christian sphere, think we're cheating somehow by using that word deconstruction. They see it very differently because they've rejected Scripture as a standard. If we deconstruct, what do? We go to the Bible. Right? We go to the Bible and say, wait, I don't know if are we doing things the right way? What's it say in Philippians? What's it say in Colossians? What does Ephesians say? So we keep coming back to the Bible. The people outside say, no, that's not deconstruction. Right? You're staying in the fold. You're supposed to walk away from the fold if you want to get into deconstruction. Why? Because the Bible is a tool of, there's that word again, it's a tool of oppression. Secular people, just to warn you, according to the book, they think we're cheating and being kind of misleading by using the idea of good deconstruction. They said, no, deconstruction means you leave Christianity. If you stay in the faith, but you ask hard questions and you study it with a group, or you go to a pastor and ask him or her what's going on with things, they don't consider that deconstruction if you still end up in the church. If you end up a stronger Christian, they'd say, no, you didn't deconstruct. Deconstruct means you walked out the door and you didn't come back. So does that make sense? That we have to watch our terminology. We know that when Steve knows this when he talks about Mormonism and all. They have a different Jesus. They have a different idea of salvation. They have a different idea of heaven. Everything's different, but they use that same terminology. And so you have to start with, well, what are the terms that you're using here? Because it's easy to have terms that can throw people off a little bit. So the background there. This is still coming from the book. They mentioned Jacques Derrida, who died some time ago, and he's been called the father of deconstruction. But for him, it was more of literature and politics, not religion. So I wanted to give you a couple of quotes from Derrida to have you think about it. Anybody look up his stuff? Yeah? Did you get totally confused?
I just thought he sounded kind of hopeless.
About 5 pages of
Essentially,
it. You wanna read
there
it?
wasn't any fixed meaning in anything.
What's that?
He didn't seem to feel like there was any fixed meaning in anything.
No meaning. So if you try to read his stuff is so convoluted and so thick and so contradictory, you basically go, my head's hurting, I think I'll quit now. But I just want to give you a few things. We are given over to absolute solitude. Remember we were talking before, what do you get if you give up on Christ, you give up on Christianity? You're free now, you're free and you're alone. So that's what he's saying here. No one can speak with us and no one can speak for us. We must take it upon ourselves. Each of us must take it upon himself or herself. He says language remains self-evidently secret. There are only contexts without any center. There's no center of absolute anchoring. So do you feel like kind of drifting? Language is jello. Kind of, you try to grab it and it's squeezed and it goes away from you. So that's him talking about it. A couple more. A text is not a text unless it hides from the first comer, from the first glance, the law of its composition and the rules of its game. A text remains, moreover, forever imperceptible. Perceiving means you understand it, you get it. Imperceptible means you don't get it, you don't understand it. Now I put a little bracket there because I was curious. Anybody see a problem with that statement?
Self-refuting.
It's very vague. Okay, why is it self-refuting, Michael? You're right.
Because if you say that it has no meaning, well, what you're saying has no meaning. So it's a circle of...
He wrote books. Yeah. And he says, here, it's a book without meaning. Why would you read a book with no meaning? I always thought it'd be interesting to find a guy like Derrida who really buys into this and go up to him and say, hey, I read your book and I'm glad you're a Christian. I'm glad you believe Jesus died for your sins. He's going to say, that's not it at all. And say, that's how I got out of it. All right, that's my meaning of it. No, all right? Because he's going to say, yeah, there really is meaning. Anyway. Last one here. I'm like a child ready for the apocalypse. I'm the apocalypse itself. That is to say, the ultimate and first event of the end, the unveiling. Right? Because that's what apocalypse means, the unveiling, like the revelation in the last book of the Bible. It's the revealing. You get to see what's going on behind the scenes. So he says, I get to be that. All right, you come and talk to me, and I may or may not unveil and let you see what's really going on. How about that for total individualism? Right? I get to make it up. I get to be the arbiter of anything. All right, so postmodernism, one word really describes it, doesn't it? And that word is skepticism. It's, well, you may say it, but I don't buy into it. Well, that movie suggested something, I don't buy that. Right? There's no ultimate core to anything. Everything is loose and moves. So there's no universal truth. There's no objective. Everything is subjective, right? Meaning it's inside you. Again, it's like ice cream. Ice cream is a subjective kind of thing, isn't it? You like strawberry, somebody likes vanilla. But that's the world we're living in now. Everything's including truth. You get to be your arbiter of what's true. So instead, how many times have we heard diversity in about the last 5 years? Are you up to hear with diversity? So, but that's part of this thing, right? Diversity is a wonderful thing. You don't have any one thing, you want to have a bunch of things. And if they clash with each other, so what? That's what diversity is, a huge thing that we hear a lot, and complexity. That's why in the last, let's say 10, 20 years, things like the Gospel of Thomas has gotten popular. And other Gospels, they keep dragging in more Gospels. Why? Because they want diversity. They're tired of the Matthew, Mark, Luke, John presentation of Jesus. They say, can't we find some other views of Jesus? Yeah, how about the Gospel of Thomas? How about the Gospel of Mary? The Gospel of all these people? And they all clash with each other. They're written way after the four Gospels. But they love it because it's diverse. And it doesn't give one picture of Jesus. It gives weird, different pictures of Jesus. So don't buy into the Gospel of Thomas. You can go online, by the way, if you want to take a look. It's there. So see what it says. It's nothing like we think of Jesus. So deconstruction versus Christianity. The Bible says, there's a word again, discernment. We're supposed to approve what's excellent. We're supposed to hold fast to what's good. Jesus told us we're supposed to obey him. There's no great decommission, right? It's the Great Commission. We're supposed to follow what he asks us to do. Now you go to the deconstruction view, it doesn't want correct theology. It's not going to sit down with you and say, would you explain free will versus predestined? Nothing, right? They don't want to go that direction. So they're not looking to correct their theology. They want to walk away from theology. There's no end goal, by the way. There's no place that they're going to end up. They might just keep deconstructing whatever they land on next. Maybe Buddhism is next, and they deconstruct that. Where they go next, they don't know. So again, it's that idea that sort of flows and heads off, and nobody really knows where it's heading. So there's no external authority, back to that again. So this to me is a real key part of what we've been talking about. It's you get to determine the truth or the way you want to live your life. So here's a good definition. Anybody know Natasha Crane? Does that name ring a bell? Oh, good. Have you read any of her material?
Pardon?
Have you read any of her material?
Yes, she has a very good blog.
Yeah, really good blog. And she's written books. If you know somebody who's trying to raise a kid as a Christian, and it's so hard to do these days, she's got 2 or 3 really good books. One is called, anyway, look up Natasha. But it's basically answering your kids' questions about God, and answering your kids' questions about Jesus. And she's got 2 or 3 of these other books that are really, really good. And she'll, it's like for dinner time. She'll have a question. What do you think about X? You can ask your kids, and then you read this ahead of time and give some really good thought questions to go. So she's wonderful. I love her material. So here's how she defines deconstruction. She calls it a postmodern process, okay? Rethinking your faith and not using Scripture as a standard, right? The standard goes away. So you just sit there by yourself and figure out what you want to believe. It's kind of like a smorgasbord, right? Pick a little of this, pick a little of that, whatever you like, whatever resonates, whatever the word is. So it's trying to get rid of historic Christianity, because after all, that's oppressive. We're back to that word again. Discrediting the church and promoting faith deconstruction. So that's chapter 1. Anybody have a question or a thought about what I was talking
A lot
about?
of this sounds just like Marxism.
I was going to say
Because his thing is you've got to do away with religion,
Yeah, that's oppressive.
right? And then we can rebuild.
Yeah.
So we have to tear that down so we can rebuild.
You ever
We
know
can
the
rebuild
rebuild never works?
on something that we think we know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that author Natasha Crane referenced in the book, or that was a separate?
No, I came up with that.
We don't pay extra for that.
No. That's free.
If we think that we've dismissed God as an authority, and we have no authority, we do have authority. We have social authority, we have laws, we have ways of being, things that are required of us. There is always authority in our lives. We can never say, I am my only authority. That makes no sense. We can't do that.
Yeah. But we're seeing more and more people rebelling against these standards that we thought were there forever, whether it's sexual practices or whatever, and a lot of that's going away. Do you agree with that?
No, I absolutely agree with that. But there are some things that will never go away. You can't kill people, you know.
Yeah.
That's and there's laws for that. You got to pay your taxes, you know.
Well, there are ways around something.
Well, I see sometimes like history just constantly repeating itself. If you look at ancient Rome and how depraved they were, and they had much of the same ideology in some respects, because you look at the Senate of Rome and some of the things that they would say, even the Greeks were like that. They were constantly philosophizing and coming up with all these random things and thinking, oh, see, I've just, solved the world's problems. And they didn't solve anything. If anything, they made it worse. And they actually had a view and perspective that gods were, at its core, any kind of deity were cruel towards man. So I just see history repeating itself continually.
Yeah. That's why Truman said nothing new. We're repeating things. So here's chapter 2. And I didn't want to give these people money, so I bought these used. But this is one book called The Exvangelicals. And this is a woman who's walked away herself, and she interviewed and talked to dozens and dozens of people about what it was like to walk away from the faith. So that was an interesting read. And then there's another one just called Awake. And she did the same thing. She's walked, this is more personal with a few friends, and the other one really covers a survey kind of thing. So did anybody look up, this is just a thought, anybody look up Amazon reviews of those two books?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you see some of the things that people said? Almost everybody I saw was praising these books and really happy that these people had walked away, and they said, me too. Did you see that more than once? Oh man, it was kind of discouraging. You know, I kept expecting people to say, well, you got it wrong because, or you're heading down a bad road. But I never saw that. It was always people so happy these books had come out.
Yes,
Finally, somebody is talking my language, right? I want that kind of freedom. I want my own authority.
It's confirmation.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
yeah, yeah. Paul?
Are these people walking away from Christianity or from evangelicalism?
Both. Yeah, but more evangelical Christianity.
So they don't believe Jesus died, paid for their sins?
No. Because that's in the Bible, and the Bible is made up. In fact, let me just share with you a couple of thoughts here. This is one person who is reacting on Amazon. I left the evangelical church a long time ago because I came to regard it as a little more than a fairy tale. So that kind of answers what you're talking about, Paul. You know, somebody wrote this stuff down, and who knows who, it was a long time ago, and they probably weren't eyewitnesses, and on and on and on. So you hear that stuff pretty often. Then there was a longer one I wanted to share with you. It was hard for me to read about the experiences shared by Sarah and others locked inside the evangelical subculture and tortured by ideas of self-hate, sinful bodies, intuition and thoughts, and fears of imminent death or tribulation. After the evangelical church judged, silenced, abused, and marginalized so many, it needs to stop blaming ex-evangelicals and start being accountable. That's pretty strong, isn't it?
Some of it's accurate.
Yeah, there's probably enough blame to go around there. Here's what I did. I told you I read the two books. So I thought it might be interesting. I was just going to share with you some of the complaints they have. Now, the text that you're going to do, if you are reading the book, they cover 5 things. We'll get to those in a minute. But if you read these books, they have a lot of complaints. Did you have a question?
I was just going to comment on that last comment you put up there. What a lot of people do is they create a straw man and then they tear it down. And when you read a comment like that, you would have to ask some questions. Who are these people? Where are these situations at? Tell us of some examples of what you're talking about. And they would probably be hard pressed to give us examples. They create straw people and try to make us feel bad about ourselves and then tear down the straw people.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to listen to what people are saying, to hear what they're trying to say, but also remember they can say anything they want and they can create any straw person they want to. Oftentimes in the evangelical church we have these attacks, and you can find a minority of people who operate this way in evangelical churches they're attacking, but it's not the majority of people.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to remember that.
Yeah, it's a good point. Here's my list, and it's probably not complete, but as I was reading the books, I kept writing down, oh, okay, somebody's griping about this. Donald Trump in the 2016 election, the loss of abortion rights, opposition to teaching about race and gender in schools, Christian nationalism. That's getting popular. I don't know if you've heard that term. I want to do a talk on that sometime. I haven't put it together completely, but anytime there's, well, anyway, I don't know that. Anti-gay attitudes, racism, religious abuse, skepticism of science, extolling a heaven that's boring. I think it was Morrison ever talking about that. The doctrine of hell. Ouch, right? That's a hard one. Hypocritical leaders, xenophobia, meaning don't trust outsiders, sexuality, women's roles in the church, a narrow view of salvation, young earth creationism. I thought that was interesting. Some people have walked away from Christianity because of what some people say about how life got started on this earth. and evolution, little regard for those who've never heard about Jesus, anti-intellectualism, conspiracy theories, connections to the Republican Party, a lack of love, courtship and marriage views, punishment of children, fear. Remember that one person said something about fear of tribulation? So apparently they said this whole idea of rapture and tribulation scare people, and that's how they keep them in the church. Sin nature, white supremacy, authoritarianism, ignorance of the outside world, not willing to deal with questions, patriarchy, black and white thinking, and a focus on power. So I just wanted to share with you, it's going to be more than the 5 issues up here. The 5 that they're going to talk about are big issues, but I'm just saying there are a lot of things in here. So what are they leaving? Here are the 5. And so let's just take a few minutes on each one. I ask you to think about it ahead of time. If somebody said to you, I'm walking away because you guys believe the Bible's literally true. You got talking snakes, right? You got all these people walking on water. You got some weird stuff in there. You're literally reading all that. A belief that women are supposed to be submissive to men. A belief in heterosexuality and anti-gay. The assumption the American way of life is best, that we're wrapping ourselves in the American flag. And then last, that we're identifying, remember they talked about Trump, so identifying and partnering with politically conservative, especially political leaders there. So these are the 5. So can we take one at a time? What do you say to somebody that says, you guys in your literal reading of the Bible? I don't buy that. Do you have any thoughts about the response?
Well, first part is, which part are you having a problem with?
Yeah, that's good.
That's your first question. And once they tell you that, you've got something to work with.
That's always a good point, right? You say, they're all a bunch of hypocrites. Well, like who? You know, and so start with some names. And all. Yeah, that's a good point. What were you going to say, Paul?
Well, a lot of the Bible is not literal. Lots poetic, lots of, what do you call it?
Metaphors and
exaggeration. And
yeah.
It's about as literal as how we talk. And we talk very non-literal. So you have to take everything and you have to read the context and understand everything and figure out whether it's supposed to be taken literally or not.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking along the line, if I gave you a Bible, could you show me where you see it as not being literal? Because I'm sort of hedged, they've never read the Bible.
Yeah. See?
What do you mean by literal?
Oh, that's a Coco question. Good job, you were Coco. What do you mean by fill in the blank, right?
I'll give you an example of a non-literal. In the days of Jesus, a census was taken and all the world came to be registered. Well, all the world didn't come. The Chinese didn't come, the Australian Aborigines didn't come. So if you look at that, you know that he didn't mean every single person in the world. But if you take it literally, then every single person in the world had to come. There's an example. And it's pretty obvious how to figure out whether it's to be taken literal or not.
I mean, you're right, we do that all the time, don't we? We say our sports team beat up the other guys, or they destroyed them, but they're still there. Right? So, I mean, we have that kind of hyperbolic language all the time. We don't take it all. This is what Paul's talking about. You got all these personifications and different things in there. But we believe the Bible does communicate literal truth. So we're back to that thing, where is truth, right? Is it out there? Is it in here? And we say it's out there, and that they don't like that, right? So that's their complaint. The Bible doesn't really have an objective meaning. You make it up. So there's the basic struggle. It's subjective. Back to that again. Here's a second issue. And of course, this one is a real live issue for a lot of people, and that's women are second-rate citizens according to the Bible.
They don't know my wife.
So does the Bible treat women badly?
It requires submissiveness sometimes. I just read that today, and it says, yeah. you need to be submissive to men, and it's in there.
All men?
I don't know.
Actually, to your
It says to the
husband,
husband.
to your
yeah,
husband.
to the
Okay,
husband.
there you go.
It's
But
referring
if
to
you
the
read
husband.
Ephesians 5 in context, in the beginning it says we're to submit to each other in the
Yeah.
fear of the Lord. So it includes men as well in that passage, and a lot of times that's taken out of context.
Yeah, you're right.
And then you have the very first female evangelist was the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman.
Hmm.
And the fact that Jesus, within his culture, like that Hebrew culture, he went to Samaria, which was considered unclean to the Jews, spoke to a woman that was of ill repute, and yet he like told her that he was the Messiah right there at the well.
Yeah.
And so like you look at stuff like that, and you look at his character, and you hear people try to demean his character, and I think, okay, you clearly do not know who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned Ephesians 5. When I was teaching the Bible out of Palomar, I'd have them read Ephesians 5, and I'd just see how many people got irritated. Because it does say wives are supposed to submit to the husband. Then you read the next part. What is the husband supposed to do? Love their wife as Christ loved the church. So then I say, wait a minute. You read one of the Gospels. What did Jesus do for the church? He suffered. He gave of himself. He totally took out all the options that he could have had for a wonderful life, and he submitted. It was totally sacrificial. So I said, I would ask them, say, so which is harder? And they would say, that's harder. You know, to be that Christ-like for the husband. The husband actually has, I think, a tougher job there. But, you know, people don't pick up on that, or they don't hear it much anymore. And so it's just, oh, wives are being put down all the time, but it's not true. That's Ephesians 5 that you brought up. Nowhere, by the way, does the Bible say women are supposed to be submissive to all men. We're talking about inside a home structure there that's so important. And there is a debate, certainly, isn't there, regarding women and leadership in the church. So we're not going to solve that tonight, trust me. But it's something you want to take a look at sometime and just see where you go with that. There are two positions. One's called the egalitarian, and one's called the complementarian. So take a look sometime. Egalitarian says women should be able to do anything that a man does in the church. Complementarian says each of the sexes has certain roles and certain functions, but they don't necessarily overlap. So that's the big issue that people talk about. But, you know, reasonable people come to different conclusions about that.
There's actually a patriarchal out there that's actually staunch on this issue, that they say women are to be submissive, period.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's really the hot spot
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're right.
What's the genesis of that particular concept, though, that women are to be submissive to men? Is it because it's just because there's a difference in sexes, or is it they say that because women are incapable, or they're not as smart, or what? Why would they do that?
What's gone on for centuries, hasn't it? I mean, this
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
why?
Why?
What's the basis of it? What's the basis of the
Because guys have been stronger and they're morons, you know? I mean,
Yeah, I know.
it's a stupid way to live, right? It's awful. I think it's just human nature. We're sinful. And so if we can lord it over somebody else, we do it. Right? Women are maybe weaker than men or something. But almost every society has been patriarchal, hasn't it? The men are in control. In the Jewish culture, the men used to pray, thank you, God, for not making me a woman. Right? So, yeah.
But if you go on and read the rest of that passage, it says that the men are to, I mean, they're supposed to submit to each other, and the men are supposed to be willing to die
Yes.
for their wife. But then if you go on, it says, children and slaves, you obey your parents, you obey your masters. So there's a difference between obedience and submission.
Yeah.
I think people are using
Yeah.
obedience as the word submission.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so.
And who did the most submitting? It was Jesus. So all submission is not bad.
Right.
I mean, he submitted willingly and brought about a wonderful thing. How about this? Christians are homophobes. So I'm walking away. Again, these are awfully big issues, so no, we're not going to solve it all tonight. And that wasn't the point of the book. They were just saying these are some of the big issues that people brought up as they walked away from the church. But this is certainly a very popular one today.
What is a homophobe?
Somebody that fears homosexuals, they dislike them, they're concerned about them, they think they're something kind of icky about them, they don't want to deal with them, and so they don't treat them well. They abuse them, they harass them, they make jokes about them. They call it, the whole category is homophobic.
Well, there's a huge bunch of other things that go along with homophobic now. Gosh, how many different sexual identifications do we have? It's LGBT, XYZ,
In some cases, I'd say, you're right. You're right. There are Christians can be very, as you call, homophobic, but the question is to ask them what they mean by it.
Yeah.
Because they say, well, you find it, they don't like the way we act and talk. I said, well, we're talking about an action, we're talking about a character, we're talking about a person.
Yeah.
So I think when what we're looking at is how do they define it?
Yeah. Well, plus, try to find something that's homophobic in the Bible. You're not going to find it. Or that Jesus was homophobic, you're not going to find it. Yeah, followers have done some awful things because we're all broken. Back to that again.
But if you look to Jesus, he served everyone. He
Yeah.
sat with everyone.
We love
He
it.
collected the sinners around him because
Yeah.
those were the ones that needed the word.
Yeah,
So our job is to serve others.
yeah,
Their day will come. Everybody's going to be judged at one time or another.
yeah.
And if you are a Christian and you are following Christ's example, you do hate the sin. God hates the sin. You hate the thing that is wrong, but you love the person, right?
Yes, but here's the catch. If a person's homosexual in this society today, remember, they're creating their own identity, yes? Because there's no external thing. So if they're creating their identity, you say, God hates the sin, what are they hearing? God hates me.
They can't.
So, yeah, they won't distinguish it. It's, my actions are me, right? I've decided to be this way. So now we've got a problem there.
And isn't that the whole problem? It's a problem of self. Homosexuality, the whole thing is reflection of the self,
Yeah.
which is going back to the beginning of Genesis 3:3.
Yeah,
You too can be God,
yeah, right.
right? It's the same concept.
Yeah.
That's what is the problem. That's what the whole issue is. And again, so many of these questions that are raised are questions that do not have a one-sentence response.
You're right.
For
yeah.
instance, it's the old question, if there's such a good God, why is there so much evil in the world?
Yeah,
You can't answer that in one simple, one-line question.
yeah.
But you see, they want you to. You have to go deep. How deep do you want to go? How far do you want to go to discuss this in the arena
Yeah.
of ideas?
Yeah,
Most people don't want to do it because, as Einstein says, thinking is hard work. That's why so few people do it.
yeah.
I don't know who said it, but there was a great apologist that said something about circular reasoning, and that within the the homophobic ideology towards Christians is that it started with Sodom and Gomorrah, and it was all hand-me-down information within that community. And so like a lot of them are actually confused. Like I had a friend that I actually went to Bible college with, and then some stuff happened. She got into a car accident. She ended up in a facility for a little while. They medicated her. She came out so confused as to who she was. And everybody that was in our group of friends turned their backs on her.
No.
And I was like the only one that was like, hey man, just come here, let's talk, like what's really going on. And to this day, I'm still the only person that she calls and talks to when she's in a state of confusion. But it really, to me, it really boils down to they're confused, they're hurt, they're angry, and like if we come at them from a position of judgment, for lack of a better term, they're just going to shut down. They're not going to listen to anything we have to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. The term, yes, Steve?
Homophobic is just a made-up word. Just like Islamophobic, they want to shut you up.
Yeah,
That's what it's used for, is to shut you up as a Christian.
yeah. Yeah, it's a cheap trick, isn't it? Yes.
There's also the perspective of God's creation, created order, which if you take time to develop that, you can, this is what I've done with some homosexuals, is I've discussed it from God's creation order. What is his order? Why did he create it this way? And just to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, that word, like Steve brought up, the word phobic, I'm not afraid. I don't think any of us in this room are afraid of them. In fact, let me throw down some ideas. We want what's best for people, right? We're not phobic. We fear what's going to happen to them living that lifestyle, and their physical and psychological problems, and you know about them, you've read stuff like that. So
you just basically stated God's creation order
Yeah.
as points. That's what you just did.
right. And again, this is coming from the book, so I don't take any credit for it. But I've heard people say this in other arenas of discussion, and that is, and this is always a great answer, oh, you Christians are afraid of, or you're down on, or you don't like. It's not a question of what we don't like or what we do like. We want the best functioning for people. People are made to function in a certain way. Like same-sex marriage is not good for the kids. Right? So it's not that we hate same-sex marriage. We want what's best. What's best is mom, dad, and a monogamous relationship raising kids. Right? That's great for the kids. It's great for the family. If you're in a family like that, you tend to do better financially. The kids end up out of drugs and not involved in gangs and stuff like that. So there's an organization called the Family Research Council, FRC. They do study after study after study. So it's not just them wanting this stuff to be true. They do studies that show it's best for people if they live a certain kind of lifestyle, and this lifestyle doesn't give you that kind of life.
If we all follow homosexuality, it's the end of our society.
Yeah.
There's no society. You cannot exist anymore.
Yeah. Well, okay, I don't want you guys to sit here too long. We'll do 4 and 5 more quickly, but I'll send you all the notes, okay? I don't want you to be stirring and getting restless. But is this true? Christianity is tied to the American flag?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Talking to the wrong group.
They're all jealous of us.
It is for us. Maybe it's not good for the English or the French or the Kazakhstanis, but we live in this country. We live under these rules. We've benefited from that, and Christianity goes along with our basic way of American life. So yeah, I think we can have a tendency to believe that, but not necessarily trying to impose it on the others.
Oh, okay.
That's theirs.
That's Christian nationalism that people are worried about. Yeah?
The Bible isn't teaching that. No. You know, it's teaching an allegiance to your country, your nation. I mean, God made all these nations.
Yeah,
The Bible's not teaching that. It's teaching people how to be united in Christ for a coming kingdom. That doesn't mean that we Christians don't think America's the best way to go.
Yeah.
But Christ said himself, he said, run under Caesar the things under Caesar's.
Yeah.
And he meant take care of where you're living as
Yeah.
well as render unto God.
Yeah. The good thing is that our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are built on God, the existence of God. Right? It says it, it's right in there. Creator. And so we're created equal, right? So why has our country been big on having equality under the law? Because of the Bible. He's granted rights. God granted these rights. If the government grants it, they can take them away, yes? You see that all over the world. But if we say, no, they're coming from a creator, now you can't, you shouldn't be deprived of those rights. And we do have the freedom either to believe or not believe in this country. And that's good stuff. And so America often does reflect, I think, and you'd agree with that, good Christian values. And we can celebrate this. Of course, the catch is the primary focus should still be Christ, right? So we don't wrap ourselves in the flag to the exclusion of Christ. So here's the last one. Political and social conservatives. Do they have God's blessings? Well, think about this. What we think about our politics before we punch the button, or whatever we do in the voting booth, our theology leads us to that place in our political economy. So what do I mean by that? Well, what does the Christian teach about humans? Are we all good? No, we're broken individuals. If that's the case, what kind of government do you want to set up? What did the founding fathers say? Oh, let's just let one person have all the power because we're good, down deep, we're all okay. They didn't do that, did they? They split up the power. They didn't trust people. They didn't trust groups of people, right? So they gave the Congress, they gave the president, they gave the courts different kinds of powers. So they wanted a limited government, which is long gone now. But that was the idea at one time, wasn't it? Because of Christian beliefs about what are people like. So it was their thoughts first, and then they created the kind of government that we have today that I think we want, and we're seeing it kind of galloping out of our hands, but the idea of limited government. And liberalism ends up doing a lot of things that we oppose as Christians because of the way people define the family or transgender rights or whatever. And often that Christian nationalism charge, that's just a cheap shot. If you tend to vote conservatively, you're not a Christian nationalist, right? Your values tie in real well with your beliefs about what the Bible teaches. I wanted to share something with you here. Doug Grotice is somebody that you probably ought to check. You get his email. He sends emails out. He's a really good thinker. Crazy last name, huh? I don't know what it's from, but it's pronounced Grotice. Here's what he had to say. A conservative, right, that probably is most of us, a conservative seeks to ameliorate, in other words, get rid of, ills as much as possible and is quick to critique ill-fated and unrealistic attempts to fundamentally change human nature. Isn't that what Marxism does? It wants to change human nature, not just the government. It wants to tear everything down, tear us down, recreate the family, recreate everything. Conservatives, given their constrained view, right, we don't think all these things are great ideas, are eagle-eyed to spot the unintended consequences of political overreach. He calls it statism. In other words, we keep thinking the government will solve all of our problems. But the government is full of people, and people are broken. And so I feel so bad. Every time a president gets elected, a new president, that person comes in with this list of glowing things that he or she is going to accomplish, right? And after about 3 weeks, we go, what happened? Right? People are always disappointed. Their ratings, their approval ratings just come crashing down. It happens no matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, because they can't do all those things, right? We're limited, we're broken people. Anyway, he's got a really interesting thing. If you go to Douglas Grotice, again, I'll send this out to you. If you go to his website.com, he's got a little booklet there. Oh, it's 2 or 3 pages. He calls it a cheat sheet on conservatives and liberals on values and issues. And I think he's very fair. But he's showing the difference of the views that people have as far as politics go.